I think you have to come.
Hello.
I'm supposed to go live.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Is it audible? Yes,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
very
it's
good,
audible.
Ji.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you well. Can you hear me properly?
Yes, I can. So, welcome to today's Instagram session, and it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you so much. My honor, my pleasure. Totally.
Let me introduce you to whatever viewers we have as of now. That Mr. Aman Sohal runs the firm Forum Advaita, and we would like to know more about your firm and your firm's name from you directly, Mr. Aman.
Okay, so we started our architectural practice after I came back from Ahmedabad and Bangalore. Once I finished working with architect Balkrishna Doshi in 2010-11 and having worked in Bangalore. So in the year 2016, when we started our own practice, I overheard this word called Advaita. So Advaita is basically a non-dual state, in the state of oneness. When you and myself are no two different entities, it is all one. So the idea is to create a built environment and an atmosphere where one experiences oneness with the space around. And Forum is a place where you exchange ideas. So a place where one exchanges ideas to create a built environment and move towards oneness. So it's like a constant reminder to us. So we coined this term called Forum Advaita.
Great. So probably you are trying to merge the non-dual natures of the being
Correct.
in a way. Okay.
That's right.
And I also understand that you are basically a graduate from Chandigarh College of Architecture, and I mean you already introduced that you worked with architect Doshi as well as a very famous artist called Jatin Das as well.
That's right.
In fact, I was with him in Amritsar 2 weeks back, wherein he was the panelist and I was the moderator. So I have met
Wow.
him and I understand uh, he is a fantastic personality with a lot to learn from, frankly.
That's
Okay, and I was with also architect Namita Singh, which obviously is one of the oldest firms in Chandigarh. So I think that's a very good and a great experience that you have behind you. So let's move on to the topic of the day, which is to do with blend of modern and vernacular Indian fenestration systems, collectively contributing to climate responsive architecture. So we are here talking about modern and vernacular, I would say architecture. How does it merge probably with the penetrations, and then how does it help in climate responsiveness in a way? So I'll just start with my first question. So, as per you, do you think that just like architecture is evolving every day, and what we used to see, let's say, a few years back, and what we see today, uh, what are your comments about the evolution of the fenestration industry?
Yeah, see, if you go back to history, fenestrations have always been a part of the design aesthetics and the functionality of design. Even if you go back to Roman and Greek architecture, or if you specifically talk about the context, Indian context, fenestrations are like an inherent part of the design process. So, for example, one of the very strong example that comes to my mind is that of Sarkej Rosa in Ahmedabad. So during my time of 12 months in Ahmedabad, we used to visit different, old structures. And when I visited Sarkej Rosa, and there are these beautiful fenestrations as per the orientation of the building. And if you come closer and if you put your hand against the jalis, you can actually feel cold air, hitting against your palms. So that's how relevant fenestrations have been. They are not only a visual treat, they are not only a system of privacy, they are also little holes you can peep through and see the wider world outside the fenestrations. So they contribute poetically at the same time functionally. So the spaces on the other side of fenestrations climatically are very well controlled. So we have great examples of Fatehpur Sikri and so many other older buildings, from which we as architects have also learned and tried to incorporate in our own designs. But yes, the design as per the modern day techniques has evolved. Now we are not dependent upon heavy sections of the fenestrations. We have been facilitated by people like you that we get sleeker sections and we can use technology to enhance the built environment. We are no longer limited by just the older systems. So yes, definitely. So the fenestrations as per the times have also evolved. One
Okay, so
one yeah
yeah, yeah.
one amazing example that I can think of is I was remembering this building that I saw in person in Paris. It's called the Arabic Institute by Jean Nouvel. He's a French architect, and the entire facade is nothing but fenestrations. So the idea was basically to create these fenestrations that reminds one of the religious identity of Islam, and that creates beautiful patterns on the corridors. So one must, if you go through those buildings, which is like very recent and modern buildings, so it's one of the amazing examples.
Okay, great to hear that. I also have my observation wherein, whereas previously fenestration was more, I would say, evaluated in terms of functionality. But lately, what I have seen in architects as well as customers, probably it is more of design intent fulfillment in terms of visual, appeal that it may lend to the house. For example, people want slimline windows, large span of glasses. Now, we speak to them technically. Being an engineer, I speak to them, okay, large spans, whether you're looking at a DGU. Why? Because large spans will bring in heat as well. We are in a tropical climate. At the end of the day, 90% of the places I come across architects and customers only being very much concerned about the look and feel of the building. They are really not concerned about what's going to bring in at the end of the day. So how do you think we can address that problem? Why? Because here it is also, I mean, I'm sorry for my word, but it's also originating from the architects. Why? Because they want the building to look more beautiful. But at the end of the day, we know, I mean, the inside spaces, the intent of merging the inside with the outside is not only to do with, I would say, bringing the nature together, but at the same time, it's also to do with the comfort that, you should or you have to maintain within a house. So how do you think we can address that problem?
No, I think that's a wonderful question. Your question reminds me of the same question that I used to ask my teachers, and even I asked some of the great architects I got the opportunity to interact with. So we were talking about what is a window. There are so many architects who have written lots of beautiful essays and poems on just the definition of a window or a fenestration. So one of the amazing architects uh, explained me. You see, he said, you see the structure of the eye. If you see the structure of the eye, this part of the eye somehow projects out, and the eye kind of sits inside. It's kind of recessed inside. So you don't have a chhajja here. The form of the structure or the structure of the face is such that the eye automatically gets protected by the structure of the face, which means the word beauty or the beautiful is questionable. We actually have misunderstood the word beauty. So coming back to the explanation of fenestration, a fenestration has to be an integral component, the integral part of the building. So the idea should not be to make it look beautiful. The idea is to make it look inherent. That is something that principally one can learn from the older buildings, older structures. There was
Yeah.
nothing, there was nothing called as this is beautiful and you add it onto it. Whatever the
Correct.
structure used to be, beautiful. Say, for example, in the modern context, if you see the building designed by Le Corbusier in Ahmedabad called the Atma building, it is the Mill Owners Association building. And that building facade is nothing but fenestration. That facade is just the orientation of the louvers and how the wind comes into the building. So, so the whole idea of beautiful has to be understood. It is the idea is not to. So the interpretation of this word beauty is something which is deeper, which needs to be addressed. You know, so this is probably what I think and what I feel.
Okay, great. I mean, I hope that this problem sooner or later should get resolved by how I would say architecture matures more in the mind of the customer and the present architects that we have, because only then we can find the right solution for the problem that we are trying to address. We're not trying to address a problem wherein, we want to give larger facades, but we're also trying to address something like ventilation, stuffiness inside the house, cross ventilation. Here people want large glasses and they sometimes say we don't want an openable. And how do you kind of ventilate the air inside out? And about heat insulation, which is a very big issue because with the kind of, I mean, I'll give you an example, thumb rule. When I started in 2008, a 500 square yard plot, which probably has approximately a ground floor and a first floor, 3000 plus 2000, more or less 5000 square feet of covered area, used to have glazing of around 1000 to 1200 square feet. And you won't believe it, today when we are going back to our data and analyzing and the statistics, today one canal or a, let's say 500 square yard house is more or less 6 to 7,000 square feet of built up area because the second floor is getting built up, and the glazing area has gone from 1000 1200 to 2000 square feet, which at that time was for 1,000 square yard. So when you're talking about 2000, yes, it makes the house more open to the outside. I agree, but I don't see any, I would say, thought gone into the heat that it would bring in and aligning it with the HVAC. The air conditioning tonnage has gone up, the area has increased, and everyone feels कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है, 1 घंटा और AC चल जाएगा. So that is the customer's explanation, and that is allowed by the architect. Why? Because they want the glass look in a way. But I, going forward, because at the end of the day, our job, yes, for us it is very good. Why? Because we get to sell more windows, but it does not serve the end intent, which is to give a comfortable living to the customer. Rather, I mean, we want to sell it in a way wherein you get back the value of the window by either in kind or either in money. If it is a thermal break and a DGU, you save electricity. And if you are more in access to the nature or closer to the nature, it helps you stay in the house and not wanting to go out all the time. So I hope with more time passing by, we will people will graduate to kind of that level. So
yeah, see, I think another problem is the problem of Googling and doing the Pinterest research. Now that has become very problematic. Now the problem becomes still worse when the architects also bow down their opinions to Pinterest and
correct.
Google Images. So what we have become is that we are caught up by these images that you get to see. Now the images are sitting in different contexts. We do not understand that context, and we would get awed by a beautiful floating slab with lots of glass around, which is of a building sitting in the west, where it might work probably, but in the Indian context we might not need that. No, so the idea of designing and planning inside out, not outside in, is the major problem. We have initiated this idea of designing outside in. So outside in means you first design the facade and then you slowly move inside. So when you are planning to design the facade as at the first level, the problem begins there itself. But if you begin inside out, then you are hardly worried about the facade.
Correct.
Of course, if the planning allows you to open up your fenestrations towards the north side, I mean, you must definitely big as many openings and large sizes. But for God's sake, if the building facade is facing south or the southwest, then the common sense says that if you want to introduce a problem and then find a solution, then you give larger openings. But Indian planning system says that you limit the window size and you have big walls in the front, reduce the sizes of the openings. I would personally want to give an example of a building that we designed recently. It is the extension project of a school. It's called the New Public School. And if you look at the facade, it is nothing but a mix of the utility inside and that little openings towards the outside. So we reduce the opening sizes to as small as possible. So I think this is something I feel and worry about the present
No, I
day architecture.
guess the fact that people are more relying on Google, Pinterest, and Instagram, etc. It's like today you even have a cough, people end up using Google as a doctor than actually going to the doctor. So I understand your problem is coming on the same background, I believe, and yes, they don't get the context right, and they try to kind of kind of get that image in their mind, and then they get stuck to it that we want something like this. But okay,
Yes.
as I said, I understand just like architecture is evolving, even standards will evolve. People will get mature more by, going towards form follows function rather than function following the form. And we
True.
hope that this problem will kind of get resolved slowly. Let's move on to our next question. So, I mean, as an architect, can you tell us more about vernacular fenestration systems and the techniques we use today?
Yeah, see, I think Chandigarh is one of the best examples to understand the vernacular system. Like I gave you the example of Sarkhej Rosa is one of the finest examples of the vernacular times. What used to happen in the older times was that naturally we were trying to build, passive techniques of cooling. So the vernacular system, when we did not have HVACs and the aluminum glass fenestrations, automatically what we did was we made the construction walls thicker. And if you visit the older vernacular architecture, you will see they will orient the building towards the wind direction and deliberately reduce the size of the circulation space. So automatically the Venturi effect will take place. The wind will flow across and the cool air will go through, and you can actually feel a lot cooler inside in comparison to outside. Now, if you follow these principles, the city of Chandigarh that was built 60, 70 years ago, and architects like Jane Drew, Maxwell Fry, who have done these beautiful government housing in sector 22, 19, etc., they have used brick as an element of fenestrations. Not
Yeah,
only
yeah,
that, they have used precast concrete members. And if you see this entire facade of Sector 22C opposite the market, like the entire facade is nothing but developing one module of a jali and then repeating it all across. I have myself lived in a house in Chandigarh for more than 12 years during my childhood, where there used to be brick fenestrations on the rear side, and that allowed privacy. And we used to call it the winter veranda. So I have personally, we used to live in a 1 BHK or 2 BHK room, but we enjoyed two kinds of verandas. One was the summer veranda towards the front, and the winter veranda towards the rear side, where most of the time the south and the southeast sun will come and settle. So I have personal memories with such form of architecture. And what was that? That was all vernacular. These architects, Maxwell Fry, Jane Drew, they identified the local material, which is the brick available in the city of Chandigarh, and they used it so well. So I think we need to identify such systems, which is sitting in the context of time and region, and then evolve it creatively and make it more poetic.
why is it not being followed today? Why is it that
Again,
today we don't
again
think too
the problem of copy paste is one.
much?
And the idea of aping the West as is, it is like spreading like anything.
I'll be
So
very
this is,
frank. Sorry to interrupt. Just as you said that they use brick as a fenestration material. Earlier, I could not relate to the design why it was like that. But now that you said that, I can relate to it. Why? Because I myself lived in for some time in Sector 32, and it had the same architecture what you're talking about. And now I can immediately relate to why we used to sit in the summers in the backyard,
yes.
and then the winters in the backside and summers in the front side. So now I can exactly relate to it. Now I'll be very frank, why these things are not promoted to the customer, or rather the customer has just become so westernized that he looks up to something which is western is a good thing, and something that is right in the context where he's living is not, he's not giving value to it. So how do you think can improve? As I said earlier also, that how do we evolve?
See, the
Otherwise,
architect, yeah,
if I understand from you, it is going in the wrong direction. We'll have more Italian looking and Western looking housing as against what actually the place should evolve its own architecture, I believe. I mean,
yeah, true. I completely agree. I think the problem is of the insecurities that architects have started feeling amongst themselves. So how does this problem of insecurity come in? You are a fresh graduate and you want to establish your practice right away because you feel this peer pressure of everybody around you getting published.
hmm.
So you want to you are stuck by this instant gratification. You want success immediately. So in this process, what happens is you tend to become insecure, and you don't want to lose the client. And the client
Correct.
comes in and says that the client is well off, but his ideologies are not in sync with your ideologies. But you still want to continue doing. So that is the problem. So the idea has to be that one has to become fearless as an architect, as a designer. So
Yeah.
unless we become fearless, how will the client get educated what is right or wrong?
I am fully with you. I think you are one of the first. I mean, I've had multiple, I would say, IGTV sessions, but you are the first one to actually bring forth the something that's making sense, probably to me for sure, but other people as well. That these are the two things that probably yes, an architect, or let's take an example, any contemporary, or let's say any protagonist has to be fearless. A movie wouldn't work if the actor is not fearless and the protagonist is a meek character. So I do agree that yes, peer pressure actually lets people kind of give in to what their customer idea. I mean, in a way, you are building a house for someone, and you are the architect, you are the painter that he's hired, but he is holding your hand to paint. So in a way, you are not doing it.
Absolutely,
You are basically someone
absolutely,
like a horse, and you're making a horse for him the way he wants it.
absolutely. I'm so glad that you raised this question up. I mean, I was not expecting this being discussed in this platform, but I'm really happy that this has come up. And to all the listeners who are listening, I hope this will make sense to them. This is the answer to this question that I have discovered recently. The idea is just to feel secured. You feel secure that jobs will come to you. People will listen to you, and you will see things happening.
Things happen. You're right. I am
I,
fully with you on that.
yeah, I just like to share one small experience that I had with architect Doshi.
Hmm.
One day, on one fine day, architect Doshi came out from his cabin, and a couple of us, we would wait for an opportunity to ask him a question. So we asked him, sir, how do you convince your clients? And the answer that he gave, I did not understand then, but I understood it now. He said, you don't have to convince your clients, you have to feel convinced.
Hmm.
And I found it
Okay.
so profound many, many years later. So if you just follow this simple idea of feeling convinced, you will stop fooling clients around, you will be more honest and more integral, and with more
Hmm.
dignity you can work.
No, I think it's very well said. It's something that we need to kind of showcase in our summary that we go out on different channels after the session. Okay,
Wonderful.
let's move on to the next. I think we are digressing, but I'm loving the digression that's happening. Why? Because that's the real conversation that we are having. This is all more academic. So okay,
Yes.
let's a bit as well. So now considering the ancient, I would say fenestration as well as ancient ventilation techniques, because I'll be very frank, I have our office, we got it designed well, it looks very fancy, but at the end of the day, we always face a problem of good ventilation. So two things, how are the, okay, whether the ancient ventilation techniques today are successful, or we have some other solutions for today's, I would say, climate or weather.
Okay, so now the question here comes is that what is the degree of comfort that you want inside the house?
Mm-hmm.
You see, what also is very important to understand how conditioned you want to make your body to.
Mm.
So I can, feel comfortable inside a very well ventilated room and still not become conditioned to a higher level of comfort. But I can also say, okay, I need minimum this much degree of air conditioning, unless I cannot survive. So what is it that you are letting your body used to? So I'll tell you the differences in both the approaches. Say, for example, if you cannot afford to survive without air conditioning
Mm.
in major part of the during major part of the year, then you definitely will have to rely on air conditioning, and definitely, even if you have bigger openings and fenestrations, you will have to have double glazed units all around, and that catches up with the sustainability of the house. So definitely there are solutions. If there are bigger openings towards the south and you want nicer views from inside out, and so that is possible, but that takes the entire cost of fenestrations high in today's time. But
Yeah.
say for example, another notion could be that I am okay, relatively okay with partial air conditioning. The thermal comfort that I want, that my body demands, is definitely something which is my right. But I can decide the upper limit of my thermal comfort. Now, the moment you do that, then you can initiate more of passive cooling techniques. Then you can create poetry inside the
Mm.
house, and you can create double height volumes. You can create mezzanines. You can create terracotta concrete jalis with partial looking inside, outside, and I can create more drama inside the house. If I'm open to this thing. So so I think this is the balance that one needs to strike. There is nothing right or wrong. So what is the balance that you want to strike?
You mean to say that either it's active or passive? At the end of the day, even the passive can help you, get to
Yes,
the maximum level of comfort.
yes,
Okay.
yes, absolutely.
And
I can tell you there are buildings in Bangalore. Of course, the Bangalore climate offers
yeah,
you to do such kind of architecture, but there are architects who design buildings with no air conditioning.
yes, yes, yes.
And if you go inside the house, it is completely a different world. I'm talking
Yes.
about architecture by Navnath Kanade, amazing architects down south in Bangalore, and even architects like Sanjay Mohe. So they design buildings not from the context of making it air conditioning on day one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you can strike that balance. You can have part
I
design
can
of the building. Yeah,
I can understand we're doing a project in Bangalore, very high and fancy house, and it has no air conditioning at all. So it's
absolutely.
that's in a way that you don't end up using passive. Okay, I mean you will have them installed, but the whole objective behind designing is that they may not require it at all in a way.
True,
So I
true, true, true.
what you were saying. So another thing, ancient ventilation techniques. I mean, do they perform similar how they used to in case we use them today, or things have changed?
No, I pretty much feel they continue to perform the way they used to perform, even in the
Mm-hmm.
older time. In all the different older ancient buildings that I have been to, from north till the south, east till the west, I see them continuing to perform just the way they are. One of the best examples is that I was in Jaisalmer probably last year, and if you go to the older buildings like the Patwa Ki Haveli in Jaisalmer. Even today, the moment you sit inside, it is amazingly cool inside. Or say, for
Mm-hmm.
example, the Sri Rangam temple in down south, which is like a beautiful example of master planning. So there are like rings and rings and rings, and you go towards the center. And if you sit inside the Garbhagriha, which is expected to be like a dark place, you are sitting inside, and there are thick walls around, and you see one beam of light falling in front of you, and you are sitting in such an amazingly thermally comfortable space, and which is
Mm-hmm.
in south in such a humid climate.
Correct.
So and there cannot be a better evidence. If you go even today, there are thousands and hundreds of people going there every single day, and there are so many
Mm-hmm.
examples. You take Madurai temple, you take Srirangam temple, the Padmanabha Swami temple. Not only that, there is a temple, and for the time of my life, I was so amazed, and I have never seen a temple like that. Not a very well documented temple. It's called the Gavi Gangadhareshwara temple in Bangalore. The entire temple is below a cave, and it is the height, the clearance height is so low that you actually have to bend your head and walk across. And if you go inside, it is all thermally comfortable. So definitely the techniques that the older engineers and architects built, it so very perfectly works even today.
Okay, great. So let's move on to the last question of our, session. Have you used any fenestration systems you recall as a union of ancient practice with modern technology?
Oh yes, definitely. Uh, Taking inspiration from all these amazing buildings, we definitely try and incorporate these fenestrations. I'd like to give examples of a couple of projects that we have done this in. One of the residences that we did during our initial years in our practice, it's a residence which is like a 30 feet by 90 feet plot size. It is in Mohali itself, and the house faced southwest, and the clients wanted, like, the family comfortable house, etc., etc., and they were okay with just the high wall air conditioners and not the ductable air conditioners. So we took a challenge of positioning the washrooms and all the services right in the front of the facade. So if you look at the
Mm-hmm.
facade, the ground and first floor, it's only washroom that is right in front of you, and all the habitable spaces like the bedrooms, the common areas, living areas, they go behind. So the facade is nothing but washrooms with little openings and deep recessed openings, so that it also helps protecting the sun from going inside. And the moment you go inside, suddenly the house opens up and you have wonderful light coming from the top. So we opened the house from the top. So we provided various fenestrations from the sky. So there were skylights. Again, these were aluminum skylights. So we used technology to bring in light and ventilation. All the inside rooms were lit up because of those fenestrations, and the front remained cooler because of passively making it cool. The planning was done like that. Now the general convention is that we want bigger windows and openings towards the southwest, so
Yeah,
that you
yeah, yeah.
can showcase the inside. But that is not the idea. So the idea was to do the planning inside out. So this is one
Yeah.
such example. Now we are doing another house in Chandigarh, where we are introducing, because we got a bigger plot size to and a bigger canvas to work on. So we introduced these wonderful brick and terracotta jalis around the courtyard, and now
Great.
we
Yeah.
put so we oriented the house towards the wind direction. And so this is another example, and like the school example is another example that I mentioned initially. So these are the few examples that we are, especially addressing the fenestrations and the orientation of the building.
So my request is that since this conversation has been very enriching, we would love to post some pictures of the projects that you're doing, wherein you're merging the ancient ventilation techniques into the modern houses. Why? Because I think the only way we can demonstrate the right architectural practice is by putting something in the face of people, wherein it looks good, and also small write up about how they actually make the whole thing comfortable as well. I mean,
Absolutely.
our, let's say, once in a year, or for that matter, talking about the subject sometimes will not get passed on to the people who should actually be, seeing it. So let's do this at least for the, kind of fraternity wherein, we would love to kind of support you in kind of taking photography of those projects. Plus, you will have to do that write up, and let's throw it out on social media network. Let people, okay, if the whole thing has become so Pinterest and Google specific, let them see this also then. I mean, slowly let's increase the ratio of these kind of form versus function things rather than only the form things that are being, put on the channels. So we would love to, be a part of or collaborate with you. I mean, that's irrespective whether our windows are installed or not. It's more for the fraternity at the end of the day. And it was great to have you with us today. I mean, it was a very, very enriching discussion that we had. Yes, as I said, I was trying to pick questions from the answers that you were, submitting, and I just love this conversation. I
Thank you.
welcome, I invite you to come to, our experience center in Panchkula. We're not far away. I would love to meet you whenever you have time, and let's keep the connection going. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much to you, to the entire team of ALCOI, Yamini. Thank you for
Mhm.
having me here. I really enjoyed. Thank you so
Was
much.
a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.